Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm sharing another day of what I eat as a vegan. And so for breakfast on this day, I made some yogurt porridge with berries. I made this in the same way I've been making my porridge recently. I add a pinch of salt to 3 cups of boiling water in a pan. Then gradually add in a cup of oats, stirring in between, which just prevents the oats from clumping together. Then once all the oats are in, I bring it to a gentle boil, reduce the heat, cover, and leave it for 20 minutes. Meanwhile, I added a cup of frozen berries into a smaller pan, poured in a splash of water and a couple of teaspoons of maple syrup, gave it a good mix together, covered it and left it on a gentle heat until the porridge was ready. Once the oats had absorbed all of the water, I added in a cup of plant milk and stirred it through. Then I turned off the heat and added in a few tablespoons of vanilla soya yogurt, and then just stirred to combine everything until it was nice and creamy. I added the stewed berries on top along with all of the juice. Then I'd also mixed up 2 tablespoons of almond butter with 2 tablespoons of maple syrup again. This is the most amazing drizzle and I keep making it to go on top of my porridge at the moment. So I just drizzled that over the top as the last thing. This is almost like a quick version of overnight oats in a way because it's not a hot porridge. Allowing it to cool and then adding in the yogurt, it just makes it more like a creamy pudding. Obviously so many toppings could work for this and it depends what I'm putting on the top, but I might sweeten the porridge when I add the plant milk in as well. In this case, I love the thick creamy oats with the sweet berries and the maple nut butter drizzle, which literally just tastes like caramel. For lunch, I made us some Harissa chickpeas on toast. I first added a couple of spoonfuls of Harissa paste to a frying pan on a medium heat to warm it through. Once the paste was beginning to fry off, I then added in a can of rinsed and drained chickpeas. And I turned those through the Harissa paste to get them well coated. And I then left that on a low to medium heat to continue cooking the chickpeas. Meanwhile, I popped 4 pieces of rye bread in the toaster to toast, and once they were done, I spread on a thick layer of hummus. I then sliced up an avocado and placed half on each plate. And then just before I removed the chickpeas, I added a large handful of spinach to the pan and just wilted that down for a minute. Once the spinach had wilted, I placed that on the toast, followed by the Harissa chickpeas. I also then made a kind of dressing to go on top, which was a few spoonfuls of tahini mixed with some sumac and a squeeze of lemon juice, and I just drizzled that over the top of everything, followed by some more lemon juice, seasoning and a pinch of chili flakes. I love this dressing combination. It's slightly bitter as tahini is, but in this case it works so nicely with the Harissa chickpeas, which are pretty spicy, and both the cool and creamy hummus and avocado. I find these kind of open sandwiches such great lunches. There's so many combinations you can do, and this literally took me less than 20 minutes to make. I also think this is quite a well balanced lunch. Rye bread is my favourite kind of bread, but it's also a great source of protein, as is the hummus and the chickpeas. There's some healthy fats in there from the tahini and the avocado, the spinach in there for some iron, but you could add all sorts into this. I think some slow roasted tomatoes would be amazing too. And instead of the chickpeas, you could even do any kind of white bean. You can get so creative. I used to eat so much when I first started working from home a few years ago, but now I really focus on taking breaks for breakfast and lunch especially to eat properly, and I prefer to make 3 healthy, balanced, hearty and wholesome meals a day, but I still enjoy snacks as well. Speaking of, later in the afternoon I just cut up a cantaloupe melon. I'm really enjoying these at the moment. They're sweet and juicy, and I make the effort to cut it into cubes to store in a container in the fridge. It makes me want to eat more fruit because I'm definitely better at eating vegetables than I am at fruit, and so having it there cut up and ready to eat makes that so much easier. So I just had some of the cut up melon with a few more spoonfuls of the vanilla soy yogurt and also a handful of blueberries, and it was really nice. It was light, but it kept me going until dinner time later on. Then for dinner, I actually made a tempeh lasagna. I started by making a marinade for the tempeh, and for this I added 2 tablespoons of tomato puree to a bowl, followed by 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar, a tablespoon of vegan Worcester sauce, a tablespoon of maple syrup, then a teaspoon of onion granules, a teaspoon of garlic granules, a teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of dried mixed herbs, and 1/4 teaspoon of dried chili flakes. I then seasoned really well with some sea salt and also some cracked black pepper. And then just to thin it all out, I poured in 1/4 cup of filtered water. I then whisked that all together with a fork until it was completely smooth and all of the ingredients were well combined. I then took a jar of tempeh. I try and buy these in jars where I can. The jars are great for repurposing and using for storing nuts and seasoned things, which is what I do, but obviously it's plastic free too. I find so much tempeh comes packaged in plastic. As normal, this needed draining, so I just drained off all of the excess water that it was in. And I then placed the tempeh chunks out on a chopping board and then just roughly chopped them up until it created a minced tempeh. I then added the minced tempeh into the marinade and I just turned it all through the sauce until it was well coated and well mixed through. I then covered the bowl with a reusable wrap and placed that in the fridge to marinate for 20 minutes, though the longer it's left the better. I next drizzled a couple of tablespoons of rapeseed oil into a large pan on a medium heat, then finally diced up a red onion. I added that into the pan with the oil and then next minced 3 cloves of garlic, and I then added that to the pan too. I sweated the onion and garlic off until they had softened down. Then I next peeled a gross looking carrot that really needed using up, and I chopped that up into fine cubes. I added that to the pan next and again just cooked that down for a minute or so until it began to soften. I then took a red bell pepper, any pepper will work for this recipe, and I again just chopped that up into small pieces, added that into the pan, and then I took a stick of celery, trimmed it, chopped that up into small pieces, then added that to the pan too. I sweated off all of the veg until it cooked down. And then I removed the marinated minced tempeh from the fridge. At this point, it should have soaked up all of the marinade with those lovely flavours. So I added that to the pan next. I just cooked that off in the vegetables for a couple of minutes, again so that the tempeh cooked through, before then pouring in a can of peeled plum tomatoes. Then I rinsed the can out with a splash of water to then pour in the remaining juice. I broke down the plum tomatoes just using the back of the spoon and mixed everything together well. I then did just season it with some more salt and black pepper, gave it one last stir and then left that on a low to medium heat to continue cooking. In a separate pan, I made a kind of bechamel sauce with a tablespoon of olive oil and 3 tablespoons of plain spelt flour. I add the flour in a tablespoon at a time and just stir it through the oil in between. I then poured in 2 cups of oat milk, again a cup at a time, stirring in between, and I just kept stirring on a medium to high heat until the sauce began to thicken. Once it thickened, I then like to give it a little bit of flavour, so I sprinkled in a good pinch of nutritional yeast, a small pinch of nutmeg, and then seasoned with some salt and pepper. I then just gave it one last stir through. To then layer the lasagna, I first put a layer of the tempeh and vegetable bolognese, followed by a layer of lasagna sheets. I used whole wheat lasagna sheets here. I then added on a layer of the bechamel sauce and I repeated that another 2 times. So a layer of the bolognese, a layer of the whole wheat lasagna sheets, and then the bechamel sauce. Then when it came to the final layer on top of the lasagna sheets, I just kind of winged it and used up what was left. So the rest of the bechamel sauce followed by some bolognese that was left. I also sprinkled on a small handful of vegan shredded coconut cheese as well as some fresh chopped parsley. I kind of mixed it through as best as I could, mostly to mix in the vegan cheese with the other sauces so that melted properly in the oven. I then placed that in the oven, which I'd preheated at 180 degrees Celsius, and baked that for 35 minutes. After the 35 minutes, the cheese had melted, the pasta had cooked through, and the edges were nice and crispy. I sprinkled some more parsley over the top, and then I just sliced it up into 4 pieces. We just had this with a salad on the side. I think this was just some mixed leaves and some rocket, and also some cherry tomatoes with some balsamic vinegar drizzled over the top. This was the perfect dinner to have with a glass of rosé, and that's what we did. Vegan Vino have kindly sponsored this segment of today's video, and this was their Pâté Frigo Cashmere Rosé. Most wines are not vegan and use animal ingredients in the filtering and clarifying process, but all of Vegan Vino's wines are vegan friendly and are also approved by the Vegan Society. Their Cashmere Rosé is made with a Touriggia Nacional grape variety and again is an Alentejo regional wine. It's an elegant and beautiful pale salmon coloured rosé. It's smooth in the mouth with exuberant freshness and mineral notes, and is a mix of lychees and ripe gooseberries. So it's perfect with things like sushi and fresh foods. I personally love it with pasta dishes too. The price of their wines and the quality is really good. I have a discount code which will also get you £15 off any wine, and I'll have all of the details written in the description box below this video. They also have a new experiences line of carefully selected mixed cases which are such great value, and my discount code also works for those too. I myself am definitely more of a red or white wine drinker, but I really enjoy this rosé. In fact, we easily polished off the whole bottle between us, and as I mentioned, it's really smooth, fruity and fresh. It was beautiful with this lasagna, which was also packed full of flavour from the marinated tempeh that created such a rich bolognese, the creamy bechamel sauce with the extra tanginess from the coconut cheese on top, and paired with the balsamic side salad and fresh tomatoes. It was all just so delicious. And then for dessert, I had one of these Freaks of Nature sticky toffee hot puddings. These are obviously 100% plant-based, and they're really just made out of coconut milk, dates, a blend of gluten-free flours, so these are great if you're gluten-free, and also chickpeas, but don't let that put you off because these are so good. Because the oven was still hot from dinner, I just popped it in for 20 minutes without even turning the oven back on, and that was enough to just heat it through. I mean, as the name would suggest, this is hot, it's sticky, it's toffee-y, it's cakey. I don't find them too sweet. They're delicious, and even more so with some vegan vanilla ice cream on the top. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out Vegan Vino in the description box below. All of the recipes are written there too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!